Good evening and welcome to the 14th and penultimate round of the HSO Kart 1988 Championship, coming tonight from the Champion Spark Plug 300 in Tennyson, Monterey for the 300Ks of Laguna, Seca. There we go, my apologies. I'm joined tonight by Dave Miller, and we'll also have the luck of being joined by Alberto Ibanez later this evening. But good evening, Dave. How are you doing?
Good evening, Jonathan. I'm very well once again. And yes, here we are for another evening of IndyCar racing, this time from sunny California. At a very iconic track, well known to most of those who follow American motorsport.
It certainly is, and it is home to probably one of the most recognizable corners in all of motorsport, to be fair, with the corkscrew, the left and right plunge down the hill. I don't know if I think it's at least 20 meters that you drop down just through those few meters of track. It's more or less like a free fall, from what I can make out.
Pretty much you drive off a cliff and hope the car sticks.
Sounds very much like the chicane at Knock Hill, except you go up the hill and then you hope your car lands on the correct place when you're on the other side. But we said we are at Laguna Seca. Let's have a quick look at what the track looks like. The Laguna Seca Raceway, it's 2.214 miles, or just over 3.5 kilometers, and we'll be going for 84 laps, which equals almost exactly 186 miles, or approximately 300 Ks. And for those 84 laps, I've been given a little bit of insight. If you are able to cut that up into 3 sections of 28 laps each, you will be able to make the race on 2 stops. The problem is stretching your stint out to those 28 or 29 laps. So that's something we can all have a look out for, if anyone can make it to 28, 29 or even maybe 30 laps and have one less pit stop to do around this circuit.
I think it's certainly possible. In testing, I've been able to get 29 laps out of the Bettenhausen Lola.
Oh, that's very interesting. Because the one who gave me a little bit of insight is David Yates, and he said it was a bit of a struggle until he changed the approach with his gearbox settings and wing settings. The more wing you have, of course, the more resistance going forward you have, and therefore you burn a bit more fuel doing that.
I dare say David Yates is a much quicker driver than I am, so I
Could
think
be
I
there
just
for
use
us well, do you say?
by nature.
Fair enough, fair enough. We also, of course, have a championship that is far from secured up as of yet, with Thierry Canola still in the lead on 170 points now. David Yates has closed in a few points, now 14 points behind at 156 points. I probably dare say David Junt is more or less out of the championship hunt in terms of the outright championship, but he could and still have to, if he wants third place in the championship, secure it. He sits on 106 points, and 11 points behind on 95 is Richard Wilkes. And still sitting in 5th, despite only having done a few of the rounds this season. I think he's done about half of those we have done so far, is Richard Coxon on 81 points. Let's see, I wonder if we could have any luck in finding out what is happening out on track at the moment.
Well, it's a very tight battle for pole position at the moment. David Jakes is pole at the moment on a 13.7, but Thiago Canola is only a tenth of a second behind him on a 13.8. And Grant Riddle is on a 14.0, so the top three separated by less than 3/10 of a second at the moment.
Dear me, and that's very close indeed for the lead. 86 thousandths. You could... well, I don't know how you could explain how little that is, but it feels like if you see if you drop a drop of water and it immediately evaporates in your frying pan, that's probably about a tenth, so that's how little time that is between the cars, and therefore very little in terms of actual car in that amount of time. So I just have a glass of tea here, that's why you were hearing that. If you heard that, my apologies. And I notice you are sitting as 16th at the moment, Dave. So looks like you have some decent pace as well. But quickly going through the top 10, I reckon, before the last couple of dashes towards the line occurring. David Jakes, of course, on provisional pole. Canola just behind him. And Grant Riddle in the pits at the moment. I wonder if he'll go out for one last flying lap. He does, as he just leaves the pits there. Richard Coxon currently 4th in the Pacific Summit Motorsports team, number 88. My apologies. Leader Card Racing, Jason Whited currently sitting in 5th. That's a very nice time and position for him. And Brian Yannick currently in 6th, with Richard Wilkes just behind him on track. Alberto Jr. in the Team Penske entry is currently 8th now that David Junt has jumped up into 5th position for Renault Racing. That's a nice little improvement for him. If I read that right, about 7/10 improvement on that particular lap. Adam Hackman therefore drops down to 9th for Craco Racing, and rounding out the top 10 and unfortunately off the track is Pascal Mikla in the number 3 Valvoline sponsored car. I believe that is the... I'm at a complete standstill in my brain, so forgive me. It is one of the as he just drops out. I wonder if he is still playing around. I know he had a little bit of trouble with his wheel on, I think it was Wednesday. So I wonder if he's still fiddling around with that. I think he picked up a new wheel recently, that's why there is a bit of time to set it up. Patrick Racing, Ray Riddle currently in 10th then, but presumably that will be Pascal Mikla again as soon as he jumps back in the server. But let's see what is going to happen here. We can see Thiago Canola in the West sponsorship for this round. Let's have a ride along with him for this lap and see what goes on as we cross the finish line over the crest. Through the very quick turn 1 and then turn 2 down here. Nowadays known as the Andretti hairpin. Back then it was just turn 2. Then try to get power down as we fly into turn 3, very sideways for Thiago, and I think that's his qualifying done. So I wonder if Grant will be able to do anything to unsettle Jake's pole position time. And I can see we have one newcomer as well, I just noticed. I don't think he's done any races with us before, but Mike Olsen joins HSO and the Kart Championship in the number 11 Machinists Union entry. So hopefully he'll have a nice time here tonight with us. As Grant Riddle is heading into turn 1, very sideways, very late on the brakes, and he gives up the lap. So unless someone from behind can blast in a magnificent lap, it looks like David Yates will be on pole. I must say that's very impressive. A 1:13.7, I think that was. That's 2.2 miles covered in 1 minute 13 seconds. Feels like that is very, very quick indeed. You can see here from the helicopter view that Richard Coxon is sliding the car quite a bit. Clearly some good grip in the front, but lacking some in the rear. Oh, and another bit of a moment there. But he has gained time, he's gained 2/10. And now we can see the drop in the corkscrew. It is massive. As unfortunately we can see there, Richard Coxon had a bit of a moment coming out of the last turn. At least I didn't watch it, but I think that is what happened. If I'm wrong, then my apologies. I was checking that the broadcast is running properly. Richard Wilkes just outside the top 10 in 11th. I noticed he was at a standstill as well on the front straight. And Dave, of course, today sporting the red livery on his Bettenhausen entry. It looks like no Yugo sponsorship today. It's a bit disappointing, it must be said.
It is. They made us give all their parts back, so the car's fully made of Lola bits again.
Okie dokie. In other words, it's possible it'll be a bit quicker.
Yes, but it's just not the same, is it?
No, it isn't. It definitely isn't. So that is qualifying done, and David Yates will take pole for the Hemmelgarn Racing entry. I think he'll be very happy with that. And I'll just have a quick look, see if we have our race steward in the server. If not, then I'll have a quick jump in and do that. So give me just a couple of moments here. Alberto is in, so he will take care of that. That's good. And actually, while we wait for the cars to come back out on track, I thought I'd let Dave take us on a lap if you feel up for it.
Yep, certainly.
But I'll give you the time to go around a bit of the lap, and we'll come in when you're close to the end of the lap. But we will have a quick look at the trivia question for you tonight, as we will have only local yellows here at Laguna Seca. No full course yellows. Just like the case was back in the day. And the trivia question for tonight will be: who won the last IndyCar race on Laguna Seca's 1-mile road course? So that would be the outer circuit, as used from the, I believe, early 60s to would it have been the early 80s, I wonder? Maybe even mid 80s. But yeah, your options are A, Bobby Rahal, B, Rick Mears, or C, Danny Sullivan. That's a very good question Jason came up with, and I'm happy to say I actually got it right for once, when I had a bit of a stab in the dark at that answer to that question. Let's see, we were also joined by Alberto, so good evening, Alberto.
Good evening, everybody. I'm just briefing the people because we're in the warm-up, and about to start the race very soon.
Yep, sounds good. Dave just coming through the last corner here, so I'll leave it up to you, Dave. And feel free to take us on a little quicker lap if you feel like.
Okay, powering up straight up towards turn 1, which is this left-hand kink. Completely unnoticeable. Brake as late as you dare for the Andretti hairpin on the left-hander. Try and hit the apexes on both of them. And then accelerate hard up towards turn 4. Again, brake just at the 100. Try and keep it tight on the left. The car wants to wash out wide. Short shoot up to turn 5. Braking, turning in. Get on the power. Turn 6, brake just after the 2 board. Try and hook it into that and get on the power as early as possible. The corner opens up. Now this one's probably the trickiest corner on the track in my opinion. Brake late, try and hook it in. To get through there quickly is very difficult. The car wants to go to the outside. And now we blast up the hill towards the most famous part of the track, the corkscrew. Hook it in and then dive off the cliff. Power all the way down. I believe this is rainy curve, taking either 3rd or 4th gear depending on setup. Power down, brake at the 2. Hook it through for the right hander, up towards the final turn. Brake late as you dare, again. Through the final corner, get on the power, try not to spin the back wheels up. That's a lap of Laguna Seca, 84 of them to go.
It's certainly one of the more beautiful tracks in the US. And as you said, that left-hander just before the run up to the corkscrews, I'd say as well, is probably the trickiest corner after they added the infield loop to the Laguna Seca raceway. And to be fair, even before, but I think they reformatted, like reconfigured how the turn is and how it is taken. And I think the biggest difficulty with that part is that you're actually going over a crest as you want to turn in, so it's a bit like you're doing in rallycross. You try to set the car up so that it lands just like here at the corkscrew, so that it lands and you can take the corner after you've gone over the crest and had a bit of a lighter moment. And also, as you are coming into the pits, let's have a quick look at the pit entry, which is very, very tight indeed and very easy to get wrong. As I hope we were able to see that. Let's actually have a quick run back on the replay and you can see it in full force. You enter as quickly as you dare, and of course in the race situation you brake as late as you dare. As you can see, there's a right king and then a very, very tight left-hander into the pits, which just like the pit entry at the Adelaide Street course can easily catch many drivers out.
Certainly no one will be wanting to do a David Coulthard and hit the wall on the outs as they turn into the pits.
Very much so indeed.
Well, Laguna is a fantastic track, but obviously with the time and the cars becoming more powerful, it has become too dangerous for the really, really high-end series. But other than that, it's very scenic and it's one of those tracks that has the beauty of always going up and down, which is a treat in many American tracks, but not so much here in Europe.
Very much so indeed. Very good to see, because I believe they still do endurance races at Laguna Seca, and those are always very much fun to watch because of both the undulation and the possibility of the track catching the drivers out. Because you'd think as race car drivers, it's just you sit behind the wheel, you drive a little bit, you may make a tiny error, but you won't lose a lot of time. At Laguna Seca, if you making errors, for example, up at the next turn that David Saber is coming up to, you may find yourself in the outside wall because there is so little room for error compared to many other more modern tracks. And that's
Laguna,
also... Sorry, go ahead.
There have been no IndyCar races for a long time in Laguna, but the one thing that they have nowadays there, and it's absolutely beautiful to see, is the all the different days that they make with classic cars.
Oh,
They
for
have
sure,
very-
for sure.
It's a very famous. There are very famous gatherings there, and cars from all over California come there. Many people with lots of money in California who have a taste for cars, and they absolutely love to go there to the Laguna Seca Classic Days.
I believe there's 2 of them a year. There's what's called the reunion meeting, which is
Yep.
a general one. There's another one for Porsches, I believe, as well. Both available on YouTube, I think, in their entirety.
Yes, there's many, and there's also many modern race drivers who attend there, and you can see many videos in YouTube of them being allowed to drive some of those beautiful old cars, and well, it's absolutely amazing.
I can't remember if IndyCar still race here, but I do know that they do still test here with the current cars.
As far as I'm aware, they don't race. I think the last official outing at the track would have been early 2000s, maybe 2003, 2004. But I'm also very happy to let you all know, after last week, Peter Lavac is here watching us for this race, so I hope all the drivers will put up a good show for him. He's been ill with Guillain-Barré syndrome for, I believe, 3 months, but now on his way back to recover, hopefully more or less full health, and really good to had a chat with him last week, and that was fantastic. And yeah, hopefully you'll have a speedy recovery from here on. We'll have you back racing early after the winter break.
It's great to have you back, Peter. Really, we were delighted when we heard the news from Jonatan about your health improving, and you're a real fighter, man. You've always been, and we know that you will be racing with us sooner than anybody would think.
And let's see, Randy, it's the penultimate round. The last round will be at Tamiami, the Miami. I can't remember what it's called when it's part race circuit, part street
It's
course.
a park. It's actually a park. They were racing around the park.
It's a full
like
park.
Central
Dear
Park
me.
in New York or something like that. They were using the accessory roads and some of the big avenues around.
Oh, my apologies.
But yeah, it's overall a park.
Well then, it'll be a park course in 2 weeks' time, which will be the final of the season. And of course, also good evening to our usual viewers, Angel and Barrelin, or Angel May. My apologies. Cesario is here as well. Nice to have you around, mate. And hope you all will enjoy the evening as much as we will, because this will be a cracker of a race. Oops. There we go.
Laguna always provides exciting racing, and it's still, you can find the video in YouTube. They still call it the pass. I mean, like the textbook pass, the one that Zanardi made on Brian Herta. In 97, I think that was 97.
Yeah, it
98?
was.
I'm sure which one.
That was that's certainly one of the most amazing passes you will ever see. As we are just heading into the race session. You can see some of the engines being revved in the background. Obviously, I think it's a minute from the session swap until you need to be on the grid. And you can go between being on the grid and off the grid if you need to do some last minute setup adjustments. As I can see, looks like we're missing one car on the grid at the moment. There he comes, that's David Junt. As we are under the safety, warm-up lap ahead of the race. 84 laps of course, but David Yates took pole position by 86 thousandths of a second ahead of Thiago Canola, and a further about 2.5 tenths back was Grant Riddle in third. Then we have Coxon in fourth, David Junt in fifth, Jason Whited in sixth, seventh for Brian Yannick in the Alex Morales Motorsports entry. Alberto Junior lines up 8th for Team Penske. 9th is Adam Hackman for Craig Racing, and rounding out the top 10 is Ray Riddle. So I wonder did Pascal Mikola have to drop out, or is that... Richard Wilkes is 11th with Mick Chapman 12th. 13th for David Saber, 14th for Raul Yareb, 15th for our in-car driver Dave Miller, of course. Gerard Rion lines up 16th with Jason Fitch. I think Jason could be called more of an oval expert than road course specialist, but still I noticed it was a very good time. I wouldn't have been able to hit that time, so good job there, Jason, and I hope you'll have a good clean race. Mike Olsen, our newcomer to the series, lines up 18th. 19th for Bruno Chacon, who was complaining a little bit about being unable to get the car set up correctly, but he's hoping for a good race. And Mathieu Leclerc for Porsche North America lines up 20th. And I don't think he did a lap in qualifying, at least not a timed lap, so it will be interesting to see what kind of pace he can get out of the Quaker State Porsche powered machine.
Okay, careful now because pace car is off and the green flag here is quite early.
Yeah, we are now following the leaders. Let's see what happens here.
Oh, what? Someone spun there?
Someone span?
Wait.
That was
What wait.
that looked like Richard Wilkes being fired into the inside wall.
Oh dear me.
What?
Oh, he lost his front wing. Oh dear me. Looks like that was possibly David Saber who span him around. I don't think he was quite prepared for the... My apologies. The stack up at the start of the race, but David Yates has retained his pole position to lead the race after the opening few turns. Then we have Grant Riddle, Richard Coxon, Canola, Junt. I believe that was Whited, rounding out the top 5 or 6. Then it was Yannick Equino, Alberto Junior, that is of course, Hackman and Ray Riddle. We can see here Richard Wilkes trying to get around to fit a new front wing, but I think he will struggle, unfortunately. We can see that David Junt on the move up the field goes up to 4th ahead of Thiago Canola in the hairpin. And there's, I think, another pass. David Saber getting past Mick Chapman.
Yeah, Ray Riddle was in the grass some moments ago, but he managed to return to the track and not lose more positions. He lost it to Raul Jereb, I think, but trying to hold off David, who is in an quite not usual down position for him in the grid, because he's usually more up to the front. But Laguna is a very peculiar track. Some drivers really find their mojo here, others don't, so...
Yeah, I believe back in the day it was usually 1 or 2 drivers dominating over a few years, and then a couple of others, when they either got a bit slower or changed to a different team with different engineers and stuff, they would go a bit slower and someone else would be quick for a couple of years.
And Jax for now is in the lead with Grant Reader behind him, then it's Richard Coxon, David Junt and then Thiago Canola, and this of course benefits a lot David Jax in his quest for the championship. Because
sure
the more cars there are between him and Canola, the better.
That's certainly true. David Yates needs to gain 15 points to be ahead, as there we have Richard Wilkes out of the pits and getting out of the way of the leaders. Very sporting of him. Was Wider is very crossed up through that right-hander. Here comes Brian Yannick with a bit of a run. Tries to switch back up the inside he goes. Ooh, looks like there may have been a little bit of contact, but Whitehead holds on to 6th for now.
Nothing you can also see in the broadcast, that there is a lot of dirt outside the racing line. So when the cars get out there, it really becomes slippery.
That's certainly true, as we can see there, Brian Yannick spinning up the wheels. Yes, sorry Dave.
I was going to say, I can attest to that. It's very slippy offline.
Of course, that's a problem if you want to pass someone. As we can see, the top looks like it's closed up. Grant Riddle has been passed by Richard Coxon. Coxon now in 2nd. Looks like that has held up Grant. He is now under attack from David Junt and Thiago Canola. As we can see up ahead there.
And Matthew Leclerc, who was putting some pressure on him, has been able to get the position. So Matthew is now 18th, and Jason down to 19th. He has still Richard Wilkes behind him, who had to enter for repairs. And he's catching up already with Dave Miller.
That's a bit unfortunate. It has to be said, but it's nice to see, at least according to the times, Mike Olsen ain't that far behind Brun Chacon. That's good to see that he gets to have a few battles and gets stuck in with us. It's always
the ones that are closest is the little train that is heading Richard Coxon with Grant Riddle and David Junt and Thiago Canola behind him.
Indeed, not that far behind either is Jason Whitehead and Brian Yannick.
And meanwhile that is allowing David Jax to escape. He's starting to open a big gap.
If that's the case, I think he'll be very happy to do his two-stop strategy and try to hold on until lap 28. Thanks to David, we know that lap 28 is the...
Look at Grant now. He's trying to go the exit. Oh, David jumped there. And Thiago, that was... I don't know what Grant was really trying to do. Because that was the outside of the turn. Maybe surprised Richard Coxon a bit.
I think he's getting a little bit antsy and a little bit frustrated there. He's sideways again. Took to the inside dirt. But brakes late and holds on from David Junt for now. That's the positive of that turn. It's cambered, so you can enter it quite quick. Now David Junt under a little bit of attack. But yeah, I think he's getting a little bit stressed out and a little bit finicky and really wanting to get by and get on with this race. But his early pace was not as quick as either Yates or Coxon. Even though he's now looking to be a little bit quicker, this track, despite a lot of overtaking opportunities, is quite tricky to actually make the pass stick.
And this is what happens when you have a track that is so narrow and difficult to overtake. I guess that all the people that are right behind Richard Coxon now have probably a bit more pace than him, but they are unable to pass. Well, look what happened here to Grant Riddle. He had to go into the dirty part of the track and he slid out. Richard Coxon probably saw that coming.
Yep,
and now he's trying to fend off David Junt, who is the usual guy who is there for when you commit an error.
And Riddle immediately stuck his car up the inside to get into the gap. Richard Coxon opened up for him, saying, well, I want my third place back.
Oh, the gloves are really off with these guys.
For sure. And I don't think that's what Thiago wants. He has a championship to think about as well.
Just an update from the back of the field. Jason Fitch has crashed at turn 6 and I've managed to run into the back of Richard Wilkes.
Oh dear me. That's very unfortunate. So it looks like Richard Wilkes has decided to retire, as has Jason Fitch.
Yes. Fitch is out, Wilkes is out, and I guess not the happiest guy around also. But anyways, back to the action. Grant is now coming. Oh, on the outside. On the outside.
Wow!
That was brilliant.
It was indeed. He must be running low wing as well. I think that may have been him running lower wings, and therefore with a lot more fuel in the car, he couldn't quite go as quickly through the corners. As here comes Richard Coxon with a lot of pace through the turn, but he runs wide. Thiago looking up the inside, Junt around outside. Well, 3 wide on the entry, a little bit of side-by-side contact between Canola and Coxon, but I think that's all fair in love and war. And Coxon drops down, and he's wide again. Here comes Jason Whitehead looking for the inside move. And I think he got it, he did indeed. And that's also one of the...
And also Brian Jennings, this is all a bit weird. I wonder if he got some dirt in the tires or whatever, but he fell like from a cliff.
He did indeed. It's also, I think, because it's a one-groove racetrack in many areas, if you do end up out of line, so to speak, just like at an oval, you will lose a lot of places if everyone is close together like they were right here.
Gerard Rion is out of the pits with repairs and joining the race again.
Well, Raoul Jereb has unfortunately decided to retire as well.
Yeah.
I didn't see that. Let's see if we can have a... Oh dear me, it looks like he had a loose moment coming out of turn 5 and slammed the inside barriers very hard indeed. So I think that's possibly a... Well, I'll retire to not be in the way of everyone else. Retirement. I don't think that's enough to have taken his car out completely, but 7, almost 8 seconds down the lead. David Yates for Hemmelgarn Racing. 20 laps to go if he's to use his suggested strategy. Grant Riddle in second, having passed Richard Coxon just a lap or 2 ago, with Junt closely following.
And it was the case in the last race in Paul Ricard. He is again pursued by David Junt.
Indeed, and Canola not far behind in 4th, just hoping to probably make use of any spoils that fall off the table. As that, for example, David Junt running wide into turn 2, the Andretti hairpin, and Thiago Canola is through and up into 3rd. But David Junt 4th then, and Jason Whiten in 5th, Brian Yannick in 6th. 7th now for Richard Coxon. Hopefully he'll get his tires cleaned up and find some pace back in his car. Alberto Junior in 8th, sitting 3.5 seconds behind Richard Coxon at the moment. Adam Hackman in 9th, and rounding out the top 10 at the moment is still Ray Riddle for Patrick Racing. Mick Chapman is 11th, David Saber is in 12th, 13th for Bruno Chacon, and not far behind him is Mike Olsen, keeping Bruno honest. Mathieu Leclerc currently 15th, and unfortunately with a 180 spin at turn 2. Gets going once again, nicely done. And let's the leader David Yates through. 16th, and 2 laps down on the leader is Gerard Rion. Raoul Jereb retired. Dave Miller out of the pits after repairs is in 18th. 4 laps down, unfortunately, on the leader David Yates. And our other retirees are Jason Fitch and Richard Wilkes. And now 10 seconds to lead for David Yates. He is absolutely flying around Laguna Seca tonight. It looks like the group behind has been split up as well. As Dave Miller We can see there, getting out of the way, very nicely done there, Dave. Let's have a ride on board here with Richard Coxon as he runs a little bit wide at Rainy Curves. As he is looking to catch up to Whited and Yannick ahead. As I believe that's a swap as well. I believe Yannick has passed Jason Whited while we're looking through the field. Was unfortunately Mike Olsen, I noticed just
crashed. Mike Olsen crashed and is out.
Oh dear me, that's very unfortunate. Let's see if we can catch what happened. Oh, it's at that turn. Ran a little bit wide on the entry, got dirt on the tires, lost it, and unfortunately slammed into the inside barriers. That's very easily done there, and I'm sorry to see it, but I hope Mike felt comfortable the laps he did get under his belt, and I hope he'll be back very soon indeed for, well, soon indeed, but for Tamiami, and hopefully getting a finish there.
And Jund now is really putting some pressure on Grant Riddle. He's back in front of Thiago Canola. He must have missed that one.
I did indeed.
But let's stay with these guys because here's where the hottest fight is really going on.
Certainly is, and David Jund looking for a bit of a move up the inside. Here comes Canola around the outside. And I noticed Brian Yannick has caught back up as well.
The next corner to be in the inside. There you have it. That's what he really wanted, to be on the inside for the next corner.
Oh, but David Jund looking for the cut.
Protect this one. Good move, very, very well seen by Thiago.
Certainly nicely done. Let's see if David Jund can get the pass done once again. And of course now he has Brian Yannick to worry about as well. Sitting just off his rear wing. One Canola really late on the brakes into the corkscrew. Canola with a good exit of the hairpin, but Vidal is able to regain it on the gear shift. And Canola again looking for the outside move. See if he can stay there once again.
What he really wants is the inside of the next turn, the same move that he pulled before on David Jund.
When you're now really looking for the cutback, looks like he almost had it made. These guys are really working hard. It's so great to see them work the cars.
These tires are really taking a big beating with all these lockups and sliding around. So we'll see which ones are giving up sooner.
Certainly, that's another thing I didn't actually think about in terms of the fuel strategy. Will the tires last the full 28, 29, 30 laps even? To be fair, to pace these guys are going, I can't really see them doing that. Then again, many of our drivers has worked wonders before, so it'll be very interesting to watch. points as well. Now it's 12 seconds the lead for David Yates, so he's extended it to by another 2.5 seconds over the last 2 or 3 laps.
Positions are now more settled, but Thiago of course will keep putting pressure on Grant Bridal, though they don't seem as aggressive as they were some laps ago.
They may have all realized that if they are too aggressive, David will easily pull away and win the race. If they actually begin working together, they may be able to regain the time over the next 50 or 60 laps. Make it a close one at the end. It also looks like Grant has actually picked up his pace a little bit, so he may not be holding up the guys behind as much either.
Let's see what happens now, because if Bruno sees them, making room now.
Oh, there he goes, nicely done Bruno, great work.
Grant almost climbing the walls when coming out of the corner.
And I noticed also with that lapping, it's very close between Coxon and Whitehead now. Coxon
It is, yes.
was, I believe, up the inside of Jason Whitehead going through turn 2, but couldn't quite make it stick. And it looks like they will go back to being a little bit between themselves. Was Canola with a late look up the inside on Grant going into the corkscrew. It looks like Canola is really strong on the brakes. But of course up there it isn't easy to make your way up the inside, but it can be done, as we saw with D pass, as it's called. Well, of course it takes quite the bravery to make that work. As David Junt looks up the outside now, looks like he's still again a little bit too wide. Not quite able to get the run. Oh no, Grant Ridall, it looks like he's blown the engine!
Ah, that must be been under braking.
We did, he has indeed.
Well, that's what you manage to do when you put pressure on someone. Maybe such an error happens. Well, that's sad to see because he had such a great pace.
That's really unfortunate. It was on the upshift. I couldn't really hear any over-revving as such, but maybe the engine was running just a little bit too hot at the pace he was having to set to keep the other drivers behind. But unfortunately that's another retirement for Grant in this series.
Yeah, but for the rest it certainly isn't over, and David Junt is now really willing to get that second position that Thiago has.
Very much so, and let's see what he can do about that situation. And of course David Yates will be hoping for David to make his way past Thiago as well. And Thiago again defending the inside. David Junt much closer to the racing line now, he may be able to make it work. Ooh, nearly.
Well, dangling there. Maybe David thought that Thiago was going to give up there.
Well,
after all, Thiago has more to lose than David because of his championship position.
Very much so, and
but Thiago was very careful to let David know that no, that's not the case. I'm going to fight till the end.
indeed, and I think David will be a bit more deliberate next time he tries for the pass.
Yeah, that's the idea, because obviously Thiago knows that if he gives up to David like that, then the next time it will be the same. So he wants to make sure he stays firm enough so that David doesn't get second thoughts about trying to do that to him regularly in the races. I mean, these are two that certainly are going to see each other many more times in the tracks.
That's definitely true.
What happened here to Richard Coxon? Because he must have he has lost the position to Little Al, and I'm not sure where that happened, because he was quite far in front.
Yeah, was sitting more or less.
He made the spin. He got dirty tires after the corkscrew, and then he rejoined the track, but had already lost the position.
Okay.
That's what happened to him. There was like contact with the wall. Not sure if he bruised it, but he still has the dirty tires. Not sure if that's an optical effect or if it lasts a bit more. But he's getting now pursued by Adam Hackman, who is getting closer and might go in for the kill.
Certainly a possibility. As we can see, despite David dropping back a few, I think about a second, is now closing in once again, so it looks like David has the pace on Thiago Canola at the moment. But as always, there's a big difference between catching someone and actually passing them. It'll be very interesting to see what happens this time around, as I also see, if the timing is correct, it looked like it was fairly close between Ray Riddle and Mick Chapman for 9th and 10th. Let's quickly have a look at that. It is indeed very close. Mick Chapman is right up behind Ray Riddle here.
Oh, and Coxon just hit the wall again. I think that his car must have been damaged.
Oh dearie me.
Yeah, he's returning to track, but I think he will either park the car or go for some heavy repairs. He's in the corkscrew now, so...
He actually was on the... He actually ended up running wide there and span up the tires, but... Yeah, you're probably right.
It's also a matter of probably tires starting to give up. Oh no, he's not going into the pits now, that's interesting.
I suppose he wants to try and hold on. If he wants to make it to lap 28, he needs to go a few more laps to make that work. Looks like David Yates is now starting to be caught by Thiago Canola. Not sure if that's down to outright pace or if it's down to David Yates trying to make the fuel last, but I suppose we'll know in a few laps time.
It's still a big gap, so I would think that David is simply managing it when the tires are starting to get more worn out. He's not taking any chances, that's for sure. I mean, best thing he can do is win the race and then, well, let Thiago do whatever he can, but that is not in David Jack's control. So he just has one objective, that is to save the car enough to win the race. So I would say that he is basically managing the lead and trying not to make an error. Probably quite the opposite. I mean, trying to lure Thiago into going quicker so that he makes the error.
Thiago is certainly trying. He's at his fastest lap of the race so far at a 14.7. That's a very quick lap indeed. That's just a second of what was the pole time for this race.
It's very probable that all the gap that David has been able to open is actually down to the fight that was going on behind him. Because as we see, Thiago certainly has probably the quickest pace in the race.
It certainly looks like that now that he's gapped David Junt.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be held up by a fight with David anymore, so he's really trying there to shake him off. Well, I see the little has been reducing the gap with Jason Whited. It's still 4 seconds, but seems to be a bit closer. All this might be the effect of tires starting to get worn, and those who have been fighting more with other cars probably have the tires in the worst condition.
And unfortunately Richard
There's also
Coxon
the
has retired. He
lap
did
cars.
this exact same mistake that Mike Olsen did a little while ago. Ran wide on the entry to the left-hander before the corkscrew and lost the car, unfortunately. My apologies, go ahead.
No, I just basically finished. Just indicating that. And tires are probably already playing a big role here. This is a track where I would expect a lot of tire degradation because it's constantly cornering and sliding. There's a lot of understeer here when you try to get the car into the corner. So, well, most everybody will be really relieved when the fuel is used and they have to get into the pits.
I notice now Thiago Canola ran 7/10 of a lap quicker than David Yates did this lap, and Canola's fastest lap is or this lap was half a second quicker than David Yates' fastest lap of the race, so definitely looks like Canola is running for the quickest pace. But again, will his fuel last until lap 28? Will he have to take a 3-stopper instead of a 2-stopper in this?
Well, we're about 1/4 into the race, which is not a lot. So still
Oh,
many
Canola has
laps to
spun!
go.
My apologies, Canola
Yes,
has had a spin! At the
Yeah, he
corkscrew
was
by the looks
pushing
of
the car
things.
a lot, so it's no wonder.
Oh, he just pushed a bit too hard into the corkscrew, lost it on the top of the hill, had a car on a slide sideways down the hill and ended up in the middle of the track at the bottom, was able to roll out of the way, and now has Brian Yannick for close company. That's lost him 10 seconds from his best time of the race. That's a big loss of time for him. As we can see, Mathieu
Not really,
Leclerc coming out of
because
pits as well.
He ended in a blind spot, and he was really lucky that nobody rammed him when he was trying to rejoin the track.
I suppose it could be said he was lucky that there was a gap back to David Jun, so he had time to roll out of the way, as you say. And then I think it was a good bit of mental fortitude to calculate that, okay, now I have time to actually get going and still be out of the way by the time the next car comes around. But that means David Yates' lead is back to 13 seconds to David Junt. And of course Canola under pressure from Brian Yannick now. And of course with much worse tires because of that spin.
Yeah, you can see that he is going out of the track when pushing for the limit. And having Brian Yannick come right behind him won't help at all, because, well, now his tires are probably starting to shake off the dirt and the debris that they caught, but still they are worn tires. I mean, I'm not so sure, but let's see. We should see a 2-stop race, so around lap 30, something like that, the cars would start to go into the pits. probably in 1 or 2 laps for the ones that have used more fuel.
Certainly, they need to make 28 laps out of the tank to make it on a 2-stopper. Anything less than that will not do. As we could see earlier, Mathieu Leclerc was into the pits. And now David Yates is sitting behind Mick Chapman, who tries to get out of the way. And David Yates taking no chances. Leaves a big gap to Mick Chapman, who ran a little bit wide. Maybe David was a little bit worried that Mick would have a moment, but all good. That lost him a little bit of his lead, but still over 11 seconds back to David Junt. And a further 5.5 back to Thiago, so he is gapped. Brian Yannick very quickly here, up to 2.2 seconds ahead of Brian Yannick after only 1.5 laps. So it's very impressive to see Thiago's pace. Oh, but he's wide again off the track. Got slightly caught out by trying to lap Jean Rion, and that drops him back to 4th. This race looks to almost be unraveling for Thiago. He needs to try and get his calmness back and get some consistent laps in, and hopefully be able to regain some positions to keep the championship in his favor.
And remember that Jax also has the extra point of the pole position and is on his way of getting the extra point of the most laps left.
Indeed, and I believe if they finish this lap and can go one more, they will be able to go for a 2-stopper. So that would mean Canola, Yannick, Junt, Jakes, Whited, Little Al, Adam Hackman, and we'll see about Grant in a little while. He is of course in the Ilmore Chevrolet, so possibly burning more fuel than most of the other runners. Same could be said for Mick Chapman and David Saber.
And Jax goes into the pits.
So that's
First
bang on the money,
here,
28 laps.
And let's see what the rest does. John
David Yates missed his pit stall. He had to reverse.
Well, he had a big gap, but David Junt is not pitting. So let's see what the others do. Yannick doesn't pit.
Canola doesn't pit. And David Yates now coming out to the pits.
Jason White didn't pit either. And neither does Little Al. Now that's interesting. That David Jack has used up more fuel. Oh, Little Al is just in the grass now. It seems, I would say that his tires are total by now. Hackman is coming into the pits now. So David Jack comes out in 5th, 24 seconds behind the leader, but obviously David Junt it won't take long until he goes into the pits. Now he's coming to lapped cars. There's a small fight going there between Mick Chapman and I think that's David Saber or someone else. So David's going to lose more time behind them. Maybe the wisest thing would be to go into the pits. Yeah, and that's what also the two cars in front, Ray Riddle and Mick Chapman, who had a fight on their own, they are also doing that. So
when Yannick comes in as well, as does Canola. White actually stays out for one more lap. He's getting fantastic fuel economy.
Where is David Jax now? He goes now. This is interesting. Here he comes, but well, obviously there is a long way out of the pits, and they are going 80 kilometers an hour. This is quite desperating, but yeah, there goes your 10-second gap. Now John can go quickly, but you gotta use this long road until the exit of turn 2. And well, this is going to mean... oh, David Jantu cold tires touches the grass. He was so good, but hang on for a moment, where is David Jacks?
He is out up the road about 8 seconds, it looks like.
Leader is now Jason Whited, and David Jacks is second. Whited, who likely has not pit yet.
He has not pitted yet, so he's actually getting fantastic fuel economy to be able to stay out that long. Looks like Hackman is going for another lap as well.
And Little Al has also had his pit stop.
As Whited now comes into the pits. I think he'll be very happy to, as you said earlier, get rid of those tires, get some new boots on the car, and another full tank of highly flammable ethanol, and try to...
Junt goes by. Let's wait for Brian Janik, who is now 1 second behind, but yes, overtakes him. Thiago Canola does.
Well, it looks like he will hold on from Alberto, so...
yes, it's a long distance there, so no danger for him. Little Al had been losing a lot of time in the last laps due to the tire situation. He was having many problems there.
Indeed, and we can see here how slow you have to go through the pit exit road there, just to try to get car around that very, very tight left-hander. I suppose that's both good and bad in terms of the pit exit. It's a better pit exit than it was before, where they came out on top of the crest onto the racing surface. But
yeah, that was too dangerous,
yeah.
Obviously.
But the problem, of course, is if you come out of the pits and you have changed brakes or something and you have a brake failure, that's a very dangerous situation still.
So now David Jack's lead had been cut down to 7 seconds, but he is certainly trying to make up for it. He is now on warm tires and has opened the pit with David Junt, but let's see how that progresses.
Certainly looking very smooth at the moment. Ran a little bit wide there, had to go down to third. I don't think that's something he would want to do, but he saved that very well indeed.
Hackman is getting really close now to Little Al.
There he is. I think Hackman pitted a lap or two ago. It looks like Little Al is a little bit under pressure, locked up the inside front tire there. As well as easy to do because it's a curved braking zone. That's also one of the neat things with this Laguna Seca Raceway location. It's definitely a driver's circuit with all the undulations and curved braking zones and crests and drops, uphill, downhill. It has pretty much everything.
And that corkscrew, I mean, that's something that you apparently have to see in real life to believe it, because people who have been there, they say the TV doesn't do justice to it, neither do the pictures. I mean, it's as if you are on top of the balcony on a 7 or 8 stock and you're looking down. That's how it feels apparently. It's really, really impressive.
Yeah. For sure. And I suppose the closest you would get to that is the dipper at Bathurst. And I know there was an American oval driver who went over to Bathurst to broadcast for, I think it was the Speed Networks. And he was taken around the track by Jason Bright, I think it was actually. It was it Dale Earnhardt? No, it wasn't Dale. Was it? No, it wasn't Dale. But yeah, anyway, an oval racer from like 70s, 80s. He was very successful in oval racing. Went over there, was taken around for a lap with Jason Bright. He was more or less thinking like, "Oh, this is a nice, solid chap here. He'll take me around the lap, and we'll just look at some of the parks up there, and just have a look over the top at the skyline." But of course, Jason Bright, as usual, goes out there like a race car driver, and the guy was so incredibly scared, and he went like, "I hate the corkscrew. The corkscrew is dumb." And then afterwards, he had a chat with the Australian broadcasters, and they were like, "Well, the corkscrew is in Laguna Seca in America." "I know, but I've never been to Laguna Seca, and I've always wondered what the corkscrew is like. I now know. It's terrifying."
Yeah. It is, yes. Thiago
And also, that lap is on
pursuing
YouTube
now
if you would
Brian
want to
Janik.
watch it. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you. Thiago Canola is now pursuing Brian Janik. He has the podium position on Rich, and he's trying to put some pressure on Brian. He's certainly catching him up.
Well, I think it'll be a long shot for Brian to hold on, but anything is possible. As we're closing into the halfway distance, only 7 laps away. It was Daryl Waltrip who was taken around the lap at Bathurst, so if you want to watch that, it is on YouTube. It's a 4.5 minute video if you want to watch that after this race. And I also understand, in terms of the American market, Daryl is either a love or hate driver, but that was very amusing to watch, it has to be said, so I'll give a thumbs up to that. So anyway, back to racing, and Thiago's looking for a move up the inside on Brian there. Brian closes the door and holds on. And now some lap traffic getting in on the action as well as Gerard Rion. I don't think he will pose any difficulties. He's been very sporting so far and getting out of the way.
Yeah, but this all is going to hurt Thiago because David Junt is now 12 seconds in front of him, and it's becoming 13 very quickly. So he really needs to be able to overtake Brian Janik and start driving on his own pace.
Indeed, and it's almost 22 seconds up to David Yates, so very problematic indeed. But of course, I wouldn't be surprised if Thiago is running quite low wings as usual in these cars, and around here I think that's going to hurt his overall pace when it comes to traffic, because around here you really need all the grip you can get out of the wings to get through the corners quickly, and if you have someone in front who takes away some of that downforce for you, it'll be very tricky proposition indeed. As we could see there on the front straight, he could catch up to Brian Janik, but not quite quick enough, and I reckon now we will see him struggle to actually stay really close behind through these corners.
Yes, these are rather quick corners, and the aero effects here are very big. Always the understeer, obviously. Yeah. Oh! I don't.
I think that was a server. The server having a bit of a The brain failed. I don't think either of them went off there actually, and they are both still in the race and still going hard. And now it is 23 seconds up to David Yates for Tiago Canola, so he is definitely being held up by Brian Yannick here.
Yes, he's going at a much slower pace than normal.
I think Tiago could have an opportunity here. Oh, he's not quite sure which way he should go, and he has to tuck in behind again. Ryan, of course, defending the middle of the road, perfectly entitled to do so. And, of course, with the narrowness of this track, that doesn't leave a lot of room for Tiago to find a way past.
And both of them being from Detroit, and if I'm not mistaken, knowing themselves in real life, well, they will have something to talk about next time they meet with a beer. Oh, Brian Yannick there. He lost momentum, and this is what Tiago might need.
Whoa, dear knee.
An early style. And Brian knew his position was lost and conceded.
Wasn't
Well
quite as out of control as Sanadi's pass, but very nicely done. And both of them gets to survive and fight on for another 44 laps, 43 laps. I think that was 45 laps, my apologies, I can't quite do maths at the moment. So Mathieu Leclerc very nicely gets out of the way of the faster cars. And unfortunately that's the battle for us for a little while by the looks of things, so let's have a look through the field. David Yates, of course, still in the lead, just putting a lap on David Saber there. Actually a second lap on David Saber. His lead is still 8 seconds ahead of David Jones. I think those 3 or 4 seconds David Yates lost was because he missed his pit box, so hopefully he'll know where it is this time. Next time they come into the pits, and he won't drop those few extra seconds. But David Jones second, now 9 seconds behind David Yates. A further nearly 13 seconds behind is Tiago Canola. And 4th for Brian Yannick. 5th for Jason Whited. He has remained there for most of the race. Very consistent. Nice drive from him. 15 seconds behind Jason we have Little Al, who unfortunately is in the gravel trap. I think that's up at the corkscrew. Oh, and Dirty Tires trying to get away as well. But thankfully he's able to get back on the grey tarmac and keep on going. But that means only 7 seconds behind him now is Adam Hackman for Craco Racing. 8th is Mick Chapman, a further near minute behind Adam Hackman. 11th seconds behind Mick we have Ray Riddle, and rounding out top 10 at the moment is David Saber. A lap behind him we have Bruno Chacon for Gore Racing. Bruno I'm sure hope for a top 10 finish with a bit more attrition to help him on his way. Bruno, of course, not always the quickest driver, but very consistent in getting to the finish, and often without too many hiccups, which is a very good trait for a driver to have. 12 for Gerard Rion for Arciero Racing, 6 seconds behind Bruno at the moment. And a further 46 seconds behind him we have Mathieu Leclerc in 13th for Porsche North America. And currently rounding out our runners, 1 minute behind Mathieu Leclerc is Dave Miller. And our unfortunate retirees so far in this race, we've had, I believe that's 6, Coxon, Grant Riddle, Olsen, Jereb, Fitch and Wilkes. And while we've been doing that, we can see that Thiago has proved his pace once again. He's closed in, I believe that's about 3 seconds on David Yates in the last 2 or 3 laps, as we are now at the half distance, more or less 42 laps to go.
As they say, if in the first half teams have gotten to this, they can very well go in the reverse way in the second half. So let's see what happens.
It'll certainly be a dangerous proposition for all of them to do another half of this race, as you say, but either way I hope it'll be a big lot of amusement for us, with a few battles still to be had.
I guess the biggest question now is if Thiago will be able to get up to David Jant and fight for a win. Jant, by the way, is now only 9 seconds behind David Jant, so he has been on himself cutting a bit that distance.
Well, I think it's mainly fluctuating due to the traffic around here, because I noticed David closed into about 8 seconds when David Yates just put a lap on David Saber, but then when David Junt had to do the same, it ballooned back to around 9 seconds. So I think David Yates is more or less just, as you said earlier, protecting the car and his lead, and making use of that gap that he has, without feeling the
perspective. David Jant is doing his laps in the 116 bracket, whereas Thiago Canola is in the 115 bracket. It's not a full second difference, but it's between 0.2 and 0.5 of a second quicker.
It's certainly so that Thiago is firing on, trying to go as quick as the car allows.
Yeah, he needs to do damage limitation if he wants
indeed.
to have a more tranquil race in Miami.
Quite so, and as you say, I think both Yates and Junt is just looking after the cars a little bit and trying to get further into the race before they actually try to blast out of the block, so to speak. And as you say, with Miami as the last round, anything can happen. That
it's a very hard track. It's a street track. It's enclosed by walls, and of course traffic plays a big role there. So, well, yeah, anything can happen, especially if the points difference is not that big. And Jax is doing his best to keep us to keep the excitement up to the last race. That's for sure.
Very much so.
Yeah, the gap between Junt and Canola is steadily shrinking, I would say. 10 seconds. But it's a slow progression. Well, certainly not fast enough as far as Thiago is concerned.
Indeed, he has another 10 laps to get up to the rear of Junt if he wants to do it before the pit stop start once again. And that's of course another part of the bit of the race that's left, where he could gain time if he is able to get a quicker pit stop or have a quicker entry or exit from the pits. But of course that also opens up for dangers with the tightness of
And
both the
Little Alice
entry
in the
and
pits.
exit.
Little Alice in the pits, and I'm not sure if this is a scheduled pit stop.
That sounds to
Or-
be very off schedule.
Yep. So it must be some kind of damage. Let's see. Okay. No, he's going into the pits. No accident damage that I could see. Going off now, but he has lost the position to Adam Hackman. I'm not sure why he did it.
Difficult to say, maybe he picked up a puncture or something. Unfortunately, I just caught the end of Mathieu Leclerc having a bit of a spin coming out of turn. Is that 2-3 turn 4 then? But no harm, no foul. Just a small spin there and back on his way here. So that's nice to see. And Dave Miller himself in the middle of traffic, both being lapped and trying to unlap himself, I think. So looks like it'll be a close call if he'll be able to catch Mathieu. But don't know. What do you think, Dave? Will you be able to catch him?
I think so. I've closed about 20 seconds in the last 10 laps or so.
Okie dokie, then that'll be an interesting one to watch towards the end of the race, or later on in the race anyway. So best of luck with catching up the rest of that time, and hopefully the end of your race will be better than the start of it.
Thank you. Certainly hope so.
When Mathieu has another bit of a moment.
Yeah, he just spun in front of David John.
I wonder if his tires are getting a bit overheated with the spins, and of course he now has dirt on the tires as well, so hopefully that will be of no further issue for him. But as I believe Mick Chapman has had a bit of an off as well. I think he just rejoined the
This
track
is
with
about the
dirty
moment
tires.
in your race when we are past the first hour of racing, when people start to lose concentration and focus, and then you slowly regain it. But many people, that happens about 1 hour and 15 minutes is the moment where the first lapse concentration start to happen.
And I think that definitely was a bit of a lapse of concentration for Mick. He ran just a snitch too wide in on the entry to rainy curves, and ended up on the wrong side of the curb with part of the car, and the off track just pulled him in. And now he has Ray Ridault for close company as well, only a second behind. So let's have a little ride on board with Ray here, have a listen to the Ilmor Chevrolet getting to have a bit of a workout around this track.
And there is now Jason Whited right behind Brian Janik, who have been able to catch up. So there could be a fight about to happen.
Certainly possible, and it does look and feel like Jason Whited is hustling along a little bit more than Brian at the moment.
Thiago slowly inching closer to David John. Now it's only 9 seconds. And Brian Janik's been held up a bit by Gerard Rion until he finds his way past. They were certainly one of the worst sections of the track for this. Now Gerard makes some room. Jason Whited has been able to really get close there.
With both of them really sideways off turn 4. So both of them working their cars very hard at the moment. So what I said earlier about Brian I think was wrong. It's just that his style is a little bit more calm than what Jason is when the push is on.
Whited pulling their every trick of the bag, trying to gain more angle for the exit of the turns. Brian Janik now, in this distance, probably forced already to drive a bit in the defensive, which makes you slower, and again makes the other car catch up quicker. So this is the situation nobody wants to be in.
I think David Yates has had a moment or something. Oh yes, he has. He ran wide at the turn before the corkscrew. And that's lost him a lot of time. Now he has David Junter right behind him. My apologies for cutting you off there, but...
Well, we had the other fight there, because Janik and Whited are probably even closer than these two.
This will be difficult, but let's jump on board with Jason once again for a little while and see what happens up front. Time-wise, it's about a second now.
It seems that all the action on the track is coming at once, because we have the David Jan very close to David Jacks, Brian Janik is also fighting with Jason Whited, and Little Alice only 1 second behind Adam Hackman, about to try to get his position back that he lost before when pitting. But I think the hottest fight for now is at the top. Oh, and not just that, Ryan Riddle is now about to overtake Mick Chapman on the outside. No, he went into the dirty part of the road and couldn't make it, but my goodness. If you follow David Jacks now, we can see two fights at the same time, because it's Mick Chapman and Ryan Riddle right in front of David Jacks, pursued by David John.
And only 6 seconds behind David Junt, we have Thiago Canola as well. Dear me, this could get really close towards the end of the race. As there, Ray makes room for David Yates, but not for David Junt. That will open up a bit of a gap for David. Not that big of a gap, but a gap nonetheless. And now Chapman trying to get out of the way as well. Oh, actually a bit sideways off the corkscrew. It looks like he has held on from Ray Riddle for now.
Yeah, Ray didn't want. He was very gentlemanly there. He didn't try to use the occasion to overtake Chapman, taking advantage of him making room for David Junt. And meanwhile, all this time, nobody has been noticing Thiago Canola sneaking by, because he's right now much closer, only 5 seconds behind David Junt.
Indeed, he has 3 cars to lap, but he is certainly closing in.
Oh, and Little Al seems to also have overtaken Adam Hackman. He's in 6th position, and Thiago Canola is coming now to lap him.
And Little Al now actually unlapping himself, I believe, from Ray Riddle, or did he? No, he put a lap on Ray Riddle. My apologies.
Yeah, he put one. He's in 6th position.
So Ray let Thiago by out of the corkscrew, very gentlemanly once again. Now Mick getting out of his Team Penske teammate.
And Whited and Yannick still at it.
They certainly are. That seems to be the most consistent fight at the moment, so...
Yeah, David Jack seems to have opened a bit of a gap, and oh, Matthew Leclerc is spinning there. Unfortunately out of the track. John Power sliding out of the corner, but seems unable for the moment at least to follow David Jacks. So the heat of the pursuit is between Whited and Yannick.
Even though you say that, Ryan Yannick has opened up just a bit of a gap to Jason White in the last half of a lap. Again, not a big one, so Jason will probably catch that back, but we are closing in on the pit stops. Presumably it'll be in 2 to 4 laps time that we see the last pit stops of the race for the front runners.
But Mick Chapman and Brian Riddle are again at it. Now Mick has let Adam Hackman go by and Brian again waited. But now he's on the attack. Bruno Chacon was in the pits, now coming out.
I think that's more or less on schedule. I don't think he did the full 28 laps before he pitted last time either.
Yes. I think we're going to start seeing pit stops now. Let's see what happens now with the next pit stop, because in this situation right now David Jacks has David John quite close behind him, so if he makes any more errors in the pit stop as in the one before, he could lose the lead very easily.
Indeed it could, but then again he made that error, but now that he ought to know where his pit stall is, it shouldn't happen again that he makes that particular error at least.
We'll see. We're now 55 laps into the race and they pit the first pit stop. That was lap 28, I believe.
Yep, 28
Because
on the dot, so this should be the final stop.
Yes, remember David Jacks was also the first to stop, so he will likely also be the first to stop now.
Unless he has been able to stretch out another lap out of the fuel he has in the car.
Yeah, but it will be this one or the next. I don't think
sure,
he will be able to hold it for more time. Yeah, there he goes. Pit stop for him. And let's see if David Jan... No, he's staying. David Jan is staying one lap. And that will hurt a bit David Jacks, because even if Jonatan on worn tires, he'll obviously be way quicker than what David Jacks can do with a full tank and cold tires on his outlap.
Indeed, but he had a fantastically smooth and nice entry this time around. Found his pit stall and crew immediately and got the car fixed.
Matthew Leclerc is on the grass again. I think. Porsche has
Looked
blown.
like a blown engine.
Yep.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
So let's see David Junt when he pits and after
It's
his
indeed
pit
a blown
stop
engine.
where he does come out. This is now the important bit. Thiago Canola is still on track. So let's follow Jant and see what happens here. Because he should be coming in any moment.
I think for Matthew there, that was a missed gear possibly, or changed into the wrong
He's
gear.
going one more lap.
So that's very unfortunate for Matthew, but
And Thiago also does.
Dave and Gerard possibly in. I think Dave is looking to unlap himself, but Gerard's having none of it by the looks of things. And David Yates actually came out in third. That's quite remarkable.
Yes, but he has been the first in the top 5 to pit, so he should be getting more positions back very soon. But we'll see if his lead is or not in question, because David Junt is going very quickly, whereas David Jax is obviously now on full tank and can't go that quick. So let's see what happens when David Junt going for another lap. Now this is interesting. He's really being able to stretch his engine, his fuel tank a lot more than David Jax.
As Thiago Canola now comes into the pit stop. So let's see what happens here in terms of the championship positions, so possible points paying positions. So I believe that's Hackman into the pits as well. And there goes Thiago out of his pit stall. Oh, this will be close on the exit, I think.
Hackman also. David Jax is now about to overtake Canola, obviously. Well, he's in the... Jax is now second again, and Canola is right now past the speed limit. Top. Let's see how he does this very complicated exit of the cold tires.
Absolutely beautifully.
Great. Now he is... let's see...
He actually dropped a bit of time
behind. He has gained, I mean, he has... Junt is coming now in. Now let's follow this, because this is the do or die for David Junt. If he has been able to cut the distance in these extra laps that he has had to his avail, he could now get the lead. Jax is 23, 22 seconds behind, 21. I think because of this long pit lane, Jax might be able to come out in front of him, but the distance will be
extremely tight, yeah.
10, 9, woof. David Junt must be beating his fingernails.
He's coming out of the last turn now.
Now no more speed limit for him. Now is the temptation to do very quickly this turn, but no, he can't, because he's on cold tires. Oh my goodness, look at that.
Oh,
Jax
is...
He
Dear
did
me,
it.
wow.
Jax got the lead.
Let's see, he is on cold tires.
Because he's on cold tires, and David Jax instead is in very warm ones. So David Junt will be suffering for the first corners.
Yeah, we can see here the Canola's dropped 2 seconds to David Yates in the opening 2 laps of his cold tire stint. So let's see what happens with David Junt here. As you say, it's 1 second now, and I think David Yates will be right on the back of his gearbox as they come out of the final turn to start the next lap.
And I think what has been going on here is that David Jax calculated very well the fuel. So since he knew he was going to have to do 2 stops anyway, he probably didn't fill it up completely, so that he was a bit quicker, but of course he had to stop some laps earlier. Whereas David Junt filled it to the top in the first stop, but now in the second obviously hasn't, and for that reason they have now the same fuel load, only David Junt has tires that are 2 or 3 laps.
Oh, Junt is off, Junt is off.
The pressure paid off.
Wow, he just barely locked the rear tire there, and that sent him off. And here comes Canola. Now Junt with dirty tires, and let's see what happens here. But let's have a quick look at the replay of this. We can see there, just as he turns in, he's locked the rear tires. He did a good job on not stalling his engine though. But that gifts David Yates the lead once again, and let's see what Junt now can do, defending from Canola and possibly giving David Yates a slightly better opportunity for the final round of the championship. But it's 23 laps to the end of the race. It's 23 laps of all-out battle, I think.
Well, this was really a pity for David Junt because he had played his cards masterfully. He just bowed under the pressure from David Jacks at that point, and that was it.
It certainly doesn't take much, but
seems to have a bit more pace than Canola right now.
well, we did see on the first stint that Canola was quite slow in the opening 4 or 5 laps, but then once his tires came up to temperature and some of the fuel burnt off, his pace improved. So I don't know if he's done something to his car or setup just to make it a bit kinder on the tires. That's why he's a little bit slower early in the stint, but then he gets back to the cars in front later on. I also noticed a battle between Yannick and White that is back online after the pit stops. 1.1 seconds the difference. White is really working the car. Rear tire squirming as he tries to put the power to the road. It actually looks like Junt is slightly catching up to Yates as well, but front end of the field, so it'll be a tight fight in both for...
Yeah, like I said, his tires obviously get 2 or 3 laps less because he pit later, so he has fresher tires. They will both have similar fuel load. David Junt has fresher tires.
Very much so, and Yates was really pushing on the opening laps to try and take the lead off the pit stops, it looked like, so it would be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yes, and Jason White also is Brian Yannick in his sights. He has bitten and won't let him lose that easily.
Very close indeed.
Yudelal just had a spin and he nearly hit the wall, but he was able to recover it. Well, he was very lucky there. He had no cars behind.
Oh, and it's up at the trickiest turn on the track. Yet again. Oh, the car looks like the car bottomed out over the curbs, and that's why the car let loose on him.
Yeah, he should take it calmly till the end of the race because he has a gap to Adam Hackman and obviously no chances of catching up with Whited.
Oh, just as I scroll through the field, we can see David Saber in the barriers on the outside in the very same turn. I think people are definitely feeling the late race pressure. Looks like he had some dirty tires early on, ran wide on the entry and just runs wide and into the barrier he goes. I hope he'll be able to continue. But the car looks very, very much a handful indeed, and he has 2 laps of an advantage, so I wouldn't be surprised if he goes into the pits for repairs here. Looks like he will do so indeed.
Whited still looking for a way to pass Brian Janik. He got now closer when they were both overhauling and a slower car. But as soon as he gets some... Oh, Whited is now in the sand. He was able to save it. But as soon as Brian Janik gets some free space in front of him, he starts going quicker and quickly opens a gap. Jason Whited. Whitehead's car is really dancing.
Certainly, that he's definitely trying to put as much power as possible down to the road. The tire is telling him we can't quite put down that much power, and he still goes ahead and says you should be able to. Very impressive to watch.
Canola, meanwhile, has been able to reduce a bit the gap with David Jant, but isn't yet on striking distance. While Jax is obviously on his own, he's now being held up a bit by a lapped car.
That's Gerard Rion actually.
Yeah, he found him in the worst part of the track for lapping. Let's see if Gerard makes him a bit of room there. Yes. Well, Janik seems still able to close all the doors on Jason Whited, who is starting to get really desperate here.
Well, it is 17 laps to go, I think that is, so... I can partly understand him. But at the same time, a top 5 finishing position is nothing
to be ashamed of.
No, certainly not so. I think he needs to take that into consideration as well, but I'm fully aware that that is very difficult to do in the heat of the battle.
Canola ever closer to Jant, who seems to be...
As Whited has had a loose, coming through the corkscrew, or out of the corkscrew, I should say.
Yeah, that gave Janik a bit more of a breathing room, so we can shift the action to Canola Jant, which seems to be right in time, because Canola is now starting to be striking distance. Now this is a critical situation for David because he's there with 2 lapped cars in front.
He gets by one of them. I think he had a better lapping there, but then he may have been held up slightly in the half.
Now, because this is a very quick section of the track and very dangerous here. Ocon is moving to the inside, but he will eventually move outside there. There you go, and block Canola. It was inevitable. He's sandwiched now between both cars, but makes room. That was a good move. Just what Thiago needed to be able to continue pursuing David Young.
Very much so, and it's 5 seconds up to David Yates, so he's not pulling away too much either in this whole situation. So I think it'll be a very close finish to this race.
And Thiago must be thinking that the difference in points between third and second could very well be championship deciding at the end.
Well, it certainly could. I think it's is it 2 or 3 points, I think, between finishing second and third. So could very much turn out to be the decider. You look at the World Rally Championship, I think it was 98, where Tommy Magnum won the championship by 1 point simply because he was able to finish in 6th in the final round at Great Britain. So every point is important.
I think it's 2 points between second and third place. And right now, Thiago has 170 points, David Jacks has 156. He will be getting 22 more points in this race if it ends like this, because he got pole, most laps led and victory. So that would put him with 178. Whereas in the case of Thiago, it would be with 184. It was just 6 points. If they end like this, it will be just 6 points difference.
Wow. That is practically nothing at Tamiami.
Yes, because winning the race, if Jax would win the race at Tamiami, Thiago would need to be second. Because third would tie them on points, I think.
Okay, so then Canola will be able to finish
the next race, but this thing is certainly getting hairy.
Oh, sure. If they do, I think the countback is amount of wins. And I'm honestly not sure who will have won most if David Yates wins the last 2 rounds. That is something that we'll probably have to have a look at before Tamiami, no matter how the outcome of this race comes to a close.
Yeah, well, Thiago probably has done the same maths and is now trying to get him closer to David Young.
David Yunt going really quick as well at 15.4 that lap. Definitely putting in the work.
Twelve laps to go now. And they are going to really feel long for David Yunt.
For sure. It's always much longer when you have someone right behind you, hustling you, trying to force you into an arrow or trying to get by. But so far he's done a brilliant job, and the Swiss rarely cracks under pressure, so I reckon this will be a hard nut for Thiago to crack.
not sure if Thiago is now studying John. He simply can't get any closer, or if he's waiting for an error to happen. Because for Thiago this is now a difficult situation. He has to think whether he wants to take the risk or not. Because those points that are in the position right in front of him are very tempting. They could very well be worth the championship, but at the same time, trying to overtake David and risking getting into an accident could put an end to his championship quest. Absolutely. It would give David Jackson an incredible advantage for Tammy.
Indeed, it's a very, very difficult situation for Thiago and a difficult choice to make. I do think, if we look back at his fight with Brian Yannick, that he is running lower wings, so that could be part of the issue for him not being able to get close enough. Because Junt is keeping up a very good pace here, and actually his fastest lap of the race so far at the 15.1 that lap. So maybe Canola doesn't quite have the pace. I know he can do a high 14 in race pace, so he has a bit more pace, but I don't think that's enough pace to make it on pace alone. So either he needs to sit right behind W, which is difficult because he has low wings, and hope that W makes a mistake, which he's only done one in this race. I don't think he's done another in 3 races. Very interesting indeed. I think we are coming up to 10 laps left when they cross the finish line. The way Automobilista counts the laps on the lap tracker. Oh, as Canola gets really close in the hairpin, almost gave Junt a bit of a nudge.
Yeah, he wasn't waiting for that, though I think that Junt probably also wanted to cut Canola's acceleration off into the straight, knowing that he has lower wings than him.
Very possible.
This is the usual trick that you do if you don't want someone to overtake you in the straight that comes right after a slow corner. What you actually do is you brake a little early and you kill his momentum and be sure to accelerate before him.
Something that's, I think, more or less generally called parking the bus.
Yep.
If you want it in more of a layman's term.
Yeah, and when they come from the next lap, you are Thiago, who is behind, doesn't know whether to also brake earlier to gain the momentum, or if this time Junt will brake later and then the reverse happens.
Even. Running a little bit wide in the penultimate turn, but keeps the speed up and retains a 9/10, 1 second advantage over Canola now.
Well, it's clear that as far as David Junt is concerned, if Thiago wants a championship, he will have to earn it.
Oh, for sure. I think that's generally David's view on things. In terms of, I'll fight you for the position. I won't put you off the road doing so, but I will make it extremely hard for you to actually make the fast stick.
Oh, and Little Ali's in the pits. He was off sync with the pit stop, so he has had to do a new one, which has been very short. And his position is at risk because Adam Hackman is now coming and just overtook him. Well, this is going to hurt.
Indeed, but I think there were a few drivers having to do that. I think Mathieu would have had to do that if they said you
didn't get much behind, so he could try to catch up with Brian Janik on fresh tires. But let's see what with Adam Hackman, because it's Brian Janik and Jason White is on his own fight who just moved in the middle of those both.
That fight still isn't over either.
So Junt has opened a bit of a gap now with Canola. Not much, but enough to be able to keep on his own rhythm instead of having to drive defensively.
Oh, and Junt with a bit of a loose moment coming through turn 5, I think that is, technically. But again, retains the slight advantage he do have. Another small mistake on the brakes for the corkscrew drops him another half a tenth. Which technically is nothing, but in this kind of fight it's a massive loss of time. He gained some of it back through rain curves though, and up to 1 second of this once again. And now we'll have a bit of a drafting help, I think, here with Ray Riddle and that Ilmo Chevrolet pull him along. Ray gets out of the way, and I think he'll take the inside line to let... He takes the outside line, but he lets Canola past as well.
Well behind, Hackman has been bottled behind Bruno Chacon. Now Yannick and Whited are coming and he makes up room for them. He's really also trying to be as quick as possible because he has Little Al coming behind. And now they are all bottled behind Bruno Chacon.
That's a close one.
Have moved already. I don't think he's in danger of losing the position with Gerard Rion. Now he's moving.
And actually now Gerard Rion is in between Junt and Canola. So Canola caught Rion at a bad place of the circuit. This may end up sealing the position fighting for second and third. Canola now lets Thiago past, but Thiago has lost 1.5 seconds more or less to David Junt in all of that.
Whereas Jason Whited really has Brian Yannick now in his crosshair. They're coming to the corkscrew.
And honestly, it feels like Jason White has had Brian Yannick in his crosshairs for the last 50 laps or something. Always that's really close in rainy curves and a little bit wide off the road, unfortunately for Jason White there.
Yeah, but the race is soon over and Jason White is now really getting anxious with all this because he feels he might be quicker, but the difference is not big enough to allow him to overtake.
I reckon it's just like with Thiago and David Junt. Thiago was a little bit quicker, but not quick enough to make it on pace alone, and I don't think Brian will make any major mistakes here, with only a handful of laps to go.
Thiago meanwhile is still too far away from David Junt to be able to mount an attack. David is as usual flying. Yannick opened a small gap with Whited, and behind them Little Al is catching up with Adam Hackman. After his pit stop, so many positions that could break hands between this and the end of the race.
Very much so, and I think it's 3 seconds now, and if I'm not mistaken, David Junt can actually in some parts of the track see the car of David Yates up ahead, so 4 laps to go at the end of this lap, and he is able to see David Yates, and that could entice David Junt to try a little bit harder as well. Here we go again, on board with Jason White, and now really close to Brian Yannick once again.
Yeah, but Brian is really driving with pure cold blood. And he hasn't made any errors so far, and it must be really desperate for chasing Whited. Jason doesn't know anymore where to place his car so that he gains a small advantage. Coming out of the corner, coming in the middle. And I tend to think that for whatever wing loads that both are using, he loses a lot of grip in the middle of the turn when he's too close to Brian Janik. Another lap. And Little Al has also already Adam Hackman quite close behind. Will try to find his way past.
That would be a great result for Little Al if he can make the pass stick.
Well, he's certainly quicker, but let's see if he can pull a clean move and make it stick.
Ooh, nicely held, Alberto. Wow. Very nearly a lost car once again in that left-hander. I think again he took just a bit too much on the inside.
Janik now opened the gap with Whited. And Canola instead is closer to David Young. Not yet in striking distance, but closer.
Indeed, and David Yates looks to be running to a pace now, just looking after the car, the tire, the gap.
3 laps to go now. And Hackman also doing his best to fend off Little Al.
David Junt with a massive lock-up into turn 2. A pretty hairpin. On a twitchy moment, trying to put the power on out to turn 3. So David is really trying.
And let's see if Little Al has now the run on Adam. Adam will obviously block the inside. Now they're coming to the braking area.
Both of them really late on the brakes, but both of them getting their car stopped. So I think they'll have one more chance. One more lap, one more chance into turn 1. As David Yates and the rest is actually on the final lap now. And unless Canola has something extra up his sleeves, I think he will finish 3rd here. Behind David Junt and the tonight incredibly difficult to beat David Yates, who is still running to a pace 1.5 seconds now ahead of the cars behind. Don't think he wants to make it much closer than that. But he looks to be very slow. Don't tell me he's out of fuel.
And last chance here for Little Al. Comes from behind from Adam Hackman. Not in the slipstream. He tries to keep an angle. And he overtakes on the inside. Does he? Can he make it stick? Oh my goodness!
But in the meantime, the win goes to David Yates. Taking the win here from David Junt and Thiago Canola in 3rd. So that means 6 points between the leading two in the championship going into the final round next time out. The fight between Yannick and White is still to be decided, but Alberto did make the move on Adam Hackman. Hackman trying to look for a return the favor, so to speak, and get back past.
Yeah, Little Al was able to pass him on the outside in the braking area on turn 1. It was a very nice move.
Wow. That's a fantastic move as White is trying one last dash towards the last corner. He's really close to Brian Yannick. He could look up the inside here. Oh, Yannick leaves the door open. He closes it late. White is looking for the cutback now off the last corner. He does!
Oh! He stole his
Oh, Yannick with a better run off the corner though. Jason White gets fourth though. What a finish! Jason White gets fourth by 11 thousandths of a second ahead of Brian Yannick.
My goodness.
Oh dearie me, that was really close. Alberto, Little Al gets sixth, seventh for Adam Hackman, eighth for Ray Riddle, ninth for Mick Chapman, 10th, a top 10 finish yet again for Bruno Chacon. I think he'll be very happy with that. Gerard Riot finishes 11th with David Saber 12th. Dave Miller
doing victory bonus donuts now.
And Dave Miller finishes last of the runners in 13th with Leclerc, Coxon, Grant Riddle, Olsen, Jareb, Fitch and Wilkes, our retirees. So we can have a quick look at those victory burnouts. There they are. I can understand those. He has done a brilliant job here tonight. Absolutely fantastic drive from David Yates to take the win. My apologies, my voice is cracking up here.
I think we all have a cold today.
It isn't entirely impossible. Ooh.
Well, I have to run now. Sorry, it's a bit late for me here, but it was a pleasure and it was a very fun and interesting race. I think there was a lot of action. Glad to see you, and we'll prepare some special stuff for the ending of the season in Tamiami, because the fight for the championship will be really tight there. I hope everybody will be looking forward to that broadcast. We sure will, and see you there. Bye.
Thank you very much, Alberto. Thank you for being with me here tonight. So yeah, while we wait to see if any of our drivers wants to join us for the post-race chats. Also, sorry Dudo, but I actually like that underbody camera. My apologies if that's a bit unpleasant to watch. But the trivia question that we had for you tonight was, who won the last IndyCar race on Laguna Seca's 1.9 mile road course? So the outer road course, I think it was run until the early or mid 80s before it was replaced by the newer layout with the added infield run. From what I remember, we had one of you saying Rick Mears. I think that was Barry Lynn. But the answer to the trivia question of who won the last 1.9 mile road course race at Laguna Seca is A. Bobby Rahal, who I think won the race in, considering the livery, that would have been 85, I think. 84 or 85. So,
User joined your channel.
so congratulations to anyone who guessed A on the trivia question, as we are joined by David Jun to finish second in this race. Good evening, David.
Hello, good evening.
It has to be said that looked like a very close race at the end of it, but looked like you were in the fight from the beginning. So, how do you think your race went?
I think decent. I mean, I wasn't even thinking I would be in the mix. Like when I saw quali laps, I was said being done, it was like the benchmark, and I just somehow got up to fifth. The first few laps were very eventful. I mean, David could manage to get away, and like Richard, Grant, me, Thiago, Brian, Jason were probably all on top of each other trying to pass or defend the places. At one stage, Richard made a mistake, and we kind of let him in the dust, and everybody passed him behind as well. Then later, after a lot of fighting, Grant's engine exploded, I saw. It was me and Thiago, and then I saw, well, Thiago was also unleashed, went away, and I only saw him when he spun up the corkscrew. I was like, oh, yay, position 1, but he's probably going to be very fast and come back. So, well, I think that was like the rest of the race. What happened? We just, everyone tried to get their fastest laps in. David had an off. I closed on him, but I didn't really see an opportunity, so I was following him. We lost a bit of time to Thiago. I made my stop later and came out ahead, which was like timed perfectly, I would say. But still coldish tires, the car feels really like a tank driving it. And then in turn 1 I made a mistake, and I'm not sure, probably locked brakes or made another mistake, being nervous, not trying to cause an accident, and went off into the gravel trap. Managed to come back ahead of Thiago, and that's what it was until the end of the race, just like as fast as possible. So I just managed to come home ahead of him. I was like thinking, if I fought so hard for second place, I want to keep it. So yeah, and I kept it. So I think I'm happy with that.
I think you should be. That was a great drive from yourself. And looking towards the last round, Tamiami, how do you think that will go for you?
I hope if I'll be here, I hope better than last time, because last time when we had like on our factor 1 the 3-way battle, I think it was with Jacob, Grant, and me. I think Grant had already gone. It was me against Jacob, and then I carelessly, really, I remember it was a really dumb mistake. Went on the throttle too early, and then I crashed into the wall and was out of the race in the last one. So yeah, I think finishing at least will already be an improvement on last time. So. We'll see. Another kind of bit difficult race, but we'll see.
Sounds good. So I wish you the best luck for the final round, and I hope you'll be able to seal up third place in the championship hunt for yourself. Our fighter for the top honors in the championship, David Yates, has joined us. So congratulations on your race win, David.
Thank you very much. Good evening, gentlemen. That was a long and tough race. It seemed to go on forever.
I think I can imagine that being the feeling for you, being at the front and hoping for everyone else to trip over themselves, so to speak. But yeah, looked like you were incredibly consistent tonight, and no one else was able to quite catch up to you. Would you say that's
wake up?
That's an appropriate interpretation of the race?
Well, the first stint definitely felt like everything was lining up and working out. The halfway through the second stint, I don't know, I got a little bit of don't throw it off the course-itis going, and lost rhythm a little bit and had a couple moments, and it wasn't until halfway through the third stint that I really started to feel like I was getting it back. So that, gave Jonatan an opportunity. He did a good job with the fuel to be able to stretch it there, and he put in some really quick laps. Well, I pit a little earlier, and I wasn't sure if I was going to get an opportunity to pass him, but he kind of made a little bobble, that helped me out, and I luckily enough had already done all mine at that point, and I wasn't doing any more from that point forward, and was able to make it to the finish.
Okay, and of course your championship rival, if one is to put it that way, Tiago Canola finished third. That means it's 6 points between you and Tiago for the win in the championship. And if our quick mental arithmetics was correct in the booth, that means if you win at Tamiami, score another 22 points, Tiago will have to finish second, otherwise we think the championship will be yours. So
yeah, that's a tall order though, needing the win and the bonus points, but that's definitely going to be the goal. It's all I can do, just get as many as I can, and it's going to be down to one race, so it's going to be it. It's going to decide it, and the chips will fall where they do.
Sounds like you're taking it with in your stride, so to speak. But looking at Tamiami, how do you reckon your chances? How good your chances will be over there?
Well, hopefully it's similar to Meadowlands. I like that circuit. I don't mind the street courses, so hopefully it comes out in a similar way. No, this race was as good as it could get. With the point spread, I was happy to put it to a point where now it's a pretty much close battle instead of needing help. So
That's certainly good to hear, and yeah, I'll wish you the best of luck as well, and I wish you all of our runners the best of luck for the final round. Hopefully we'll see a close race overall over there, and hopefully a close finish in the championship, no matter which way it falls.
absolutely. Well, thank you for your broadcast as always. Really appreciate it.
You're very much welcome, and thank you for thinking that it's good enough to be watched. Dave, any final thoughts on this race and the looks for the championship going towards the final round?
It's certainly going to be an interesting finale to the season. Look forward to seeing how it works out. For myself, I just want to have at least one race this season in IndyCars where it's all nice and clean and nice and dull for me.
I'm sorry to hear that that your incident early on meant that kind of situation for you, but hopefully you'll have close races at Tamiami as well.
Certainly hope so. There's no other way of getting around it. I ran into the back of another car, so ultimately that's my lookout. But never mind, we'll come back next time and hope to do better.
Sounds good, mate. And looking at what's coming up before we end off the broadcast. Next Wednesday in 2 weeks, I think that is. Quick look. Yes, it is. So in 2 weeks time on Wednesday we have the International Adak Avus Rennen at the Avus circuit outside Berlin on the motorway. A very short and quick circuit, a straight into hairpin, a chicane, and then a very wide sweeping left-hander onto the front straight. In the 1995 Super Tourenwagen Cup Championship, round 7 of 8. There are cars available, so if you would like to have a stab at it, that's probably the best entryway into HSO racing. Looking at the rest of the year, I suppose the Formula 3 cars would be a good choice as well. I believe we have one more meeting left with those, which will be in 3 weeks' time, I reckon. 2 weeks into the future, the Sunday of the same week as the SDW penultimate round is the final round, the Nissan Indy Challenge at Tamiami, around 15 of 15 of the kart championship, starting same time at the same place. So see you then, but for now and for 2 weeks into the future, I hope you take care and have a great time, everyone. Good night.